here to just hear Bonnie and not worry about what Steve has to say. Exactly. And too. So I'm the executive director here, and we say this, it's trite, but it is my pleasure to be introducing Bonnie Pitman. I've known Bonnie now for, 16 months when I moved out here from San Diego. And how often can you say someone you've known for 16 months has changed your life? Bonnie has done that for me. And she's done that, I know, for many people that she can call a friend, even new friends. So if I went through everything Bonnie's done for me and for us, it would take too long. We'd use up our time, so I'm going to say a few things. First of all, she truly is an angel dropped down to us. We certainly feel that way about her. Bonnie is the Distinguished Scholar in Residence for the Edith O'Donnell Institute of Art History. She's been teaching med students the power of observation and art to help them make them better doctors. Right? Sounds a little weird, but believe me, it works. There are years of stories coming from these physicians telling you what Bonnie has done to change their life and the way they practice medicine. She's also our Director of Art Brain Innovations. Some of you know her from being the former director of the Dallas Museum of Art. The brain and art are very well connected, and I'm going to shut my pie hole so we can start hearing from Bonnie Pitman. Thank you.
Well, hello. I love talking without a mic. Can you hear me? No.
You want me to turn that back on?
I have no idea. Where's Oscar? Where's Oscar? I have no idea.
You have amplification.
I do have amplification. Can you hear me, Michael, in the back of the room? Yes. Okay, so first of all, I'm so grateful you're here. It is my great joy, and I am doing my life's passion, which is teaching. And so you're stuck for tonight because I'm teaching you a lot of new things that I learned over the summer, and then of course I've learned over years of being an art historian. And so you're taking it away. Okay, that's even better. Then I won't throw it somewhere. And so I've been so excited about developing this talk for tonight, and I'm terrified because it's new information, and that's okay. So if I get in awkward situations, I'll make a joke and we'll skip on to the next slide. But always a good thing. I want to thank everybody who wore red, and for all of you who didn't wear red, you'll still be part of the exercises tonight, so don't worry about it. I most importantly want to thank some key people who made this presentation possible. First is my very dear colleague and friend, Katrina Saunders, who works with me at the Edith O'Donnell Institute. And then Lindsay, where's Lindsay? Is right in front of me. She's my timer tonight, who has do something new with me and is now on to the power of observation. And we've had whole new worlds opening up for you. And then there's a students here. Where is Haley? Where are you here from SMU, who worked with us over the summer? And then Michael Lundy, who is a research fellow here at the Brain Institute, who tried to coach me through all the neuroscience of brain, the processing of brain imaging. And so we're going to have a slight course on that tonight. But the main thing is that I'm supposed to have the clicker in my hand, is that it's been a team effort, and we're off and running tonight. Basically, these are some of the key topics that we're going to be covering, which is my new theory about the power of observation, how we see color, the whole visual processing system in 5 minutes. So that'll be really interesting. The history of the color red, how it's used in paintings, how it's used in nature, symbolism, and culture, so commercialism. So it's a lot of fun, and you'll come away with fun facts. So keep your pencil ready. And there are also red apples on your table. So when you're bored listening to me, there's going to be a point at which I ask you to spend a few minutes observing the red apples and writing down what you see. Of course, if you think about red and think about Dallas, you have to think about the icon of the great Pegasus, which was the symbol for Mobil Oil. And first, it's really loud. And the first was placed on top of the headquarters of Magnolia Oil in 1934. And it stayed there for a long time. So it was even in the center, you see that beautiful wintry snow picture, which is done by Guy Wiggins, a wonderful Texas artist. And it shows that, it was an icon forever. And the most recent Pegasus is down at Booker T, Washington. So it's a living symbol of our city. Red is used in many ways, celebrating festivals. Of course, Chinese New Year's is a big one here, Christmas, all kinds of different festivals. But it's part of our daily life, and that's what I think is so exciting. It's also part of our environment. And here we're looking at great trees in the Trinity Forest, and also a very important rainbow, which you're going to hear a lot about, the spectrum of colors and light as we go through today. And coincidentally, there was that great Texas flag. I did not Photoshop this in, and then went back and found this image and said, yes, there are these moments, things come together. Many people think about art and think about, beautiful things in art, and this particular piece is owned by the Wachowski Collection and the Dallas Museum of Art, and it's actually made out of the blood of the artist. And so here blood is used in a unique way, not in a medical way, to create this work of art. I've been asked this question twice, and yes, if it's not refrigerated, it does melt. And the solution is the artist gives more blood, and then they recreate it. So it's a very fragile object. Most of the works in the talk tonight are all taken from the Dallas Museum of Art's collection, because I know it best. And for those of you who go to the museum, you know that every culture in the museum is represented with different objects of red, and I've made a quick selection of them here. And as we go through how it's used and how it's made, this will be part of the process. So one of the takeaways tonight is, I hope for you, is this framework. And on the back or the front of your cards, you'll see that I developed this framework for the power of observation. And I use it extensively with my medical students who are not skilled at looking. They're skilled at learning. They're not skilled at looking at the world around them, especially their patients, and bringing in new ideas and new information, and then transforming that into new ways to be a healer. So the process is very simple. It's scanning, taking in a quick orientation, attending, which is looking with focus, and pulling out a detail, then connecting, and this is my favorite part, which is you connect the old and the new, the experiences that are around you, and create them, and then transforming, which is deeply engaging, frequently using all of your senses and coming up with new ideas. So we're going to run through this with a very famous building. Who knows what this is? The old courthouse, right. So normally when you go downtown, what do you see when you see the old courthouse, when you drive up to it? Pardon? No parking, yes, I know that. I know that completely. I know that completely. And then, of course, it's this iconic red building in downtown Dallas, and it also stands out because it's historic. This was made in the 1890s. So attending is after you scan it quickly, is going in and finding a detail. It could have been the gargoyle, or it could have been the glass windows, but I chose, of course, the clock on the top of it, because here I wanted you to discover and select out some information. How is it made? Why is it white instead of black and white? Why is the face of the clock white? It would change it very, very much if you did it another way. And all these were choices. It's about focusing your attention and seeing how the clock is framed. And then above, in the upper section, you'll see that the peak of it is green and red. You're going to hear a lot about green and red as we go. So you have complementary colors going up to the top of the cupola. So it's very artistically designed and positioned. But you're spending more time looking, you're staying in the moment, you're identifying and describing. Connecting is a process that we all do. When we meet new people, when we see new things, it's the process of putting together new ideas and creating a context for them. And whenever we can connect the old and the new, or the personal, the self and the world, you're making a stronger memory. So this is a very important part of the visual processing system. And here I have this old postcard up, which was actually made around the turn of the century and was used, and we were so excited because we information in new ways. So it's been this particular system of scanning, attending very few windows. So I don't know really how I would stand that. A wonderful place to go, but occupied by the Chinese emperors from the 1390s. Does anyone see when you look at that, what shapes, colors? Just write down a few. It'll wake you up. Here we're just going to go through an overview of it. Light comes down, bounces off an object. The color that you see is the that bounces off. All the other colors are. So that is how it's made. Now, I'm not a physicist, so don't ask me how it works. Just believe me. If I turned if we all the lights off and it was perfect dark, there would be none of us show color. That is something that I think is astonishing. Then we see the app on our table, and the physiological response. The rods in our eyes get activated, they start moving, and they send signals to our brain. And once those signals are sent to our brain, the exciting thing is that begin to process that information in milliseconds. So less blink of an eye, all this is happening. Identifying that red ball, and this really is a road that I'm going to go over very quickly because it's sort of like we're flying through the process that Michael helped understand. So here and that's where the electrical impulse being sent through the nerve up to into your brain. And basically, what happens is it's back into your occipital lobes, and this is where the process really begins to happen. And there's lots that I could go over with, but the main thing is we're here to really understand where are we? We determine space. What is going on is signals to different parts and how. And so the emotional part of the system, which is come to an understanding of fear, or we look at dressed in a way and you wonder, why are you doing this? But then realize that it's Chinese wedding and that's common at a wedding. And if you know that, you might be a bit surprised. So cultural context is very important. So brain is making all of this association. That processing is in the frontal lobe. All this information, it moves quickly through the brain. And thank God for the frontal lobe. It slows us all down, as you can see here, and where we begin to slow and analyze. We'll realize that looking at a coral on the ground, we think it's a coral, and then we look more close and we understand it's a non-ness state. So you suddenly become aware that these the processing systems you can really come to an understanding and be more logical about some of your reactions. But the limbic system is where emotion and fast and frequent sometimes can get out of control. So now we're going to look at how we see color, which is the next chapter. But books are written on this, not this like mini version of it. So who developed this understanding of what the term is? Does anybody? Not a close guess. Isaac Newton. And he wrote a book it was 1600, but he wrote a book in 1905 called Optics. And basically was the point, understood that light refract and turn into all of this color spectrum. And Newton, who began to realize that there were different wavelengths could create different colors. And taking this further, here we're looking at three different objects, three different colors. And so you're looking at a white light, all of those is kicked off and sent back. It's not absorbed by the ball. The red ball, just the red light wavelength bouncing back, so you see that. And then black comes absorbed by everything. So a unique process of see, that's our eyes see. And there have been entire systems of color created over time. Munsell, her system was done in the 1900s. It's about values, hues, and the purest colors, the hues, those colors on the out. Then you go through the vast dark to light and the saturation, the pure color. And another very theorist about color took the color wheel, as we have seen many, and made it almost 3D. And he was a great teacher of many of the early 20th century, Kedge and others. And his theory was taught at Bauhaus of Great in Germany. And then it was traded in one of his students, Joseph Albert, who took them and realized that changes based on relationships. So what is here? Are all the same gray or grays? All the same? Anybody see different? Thank you. I'm waiting for the people who see the variation in this. But they're all the same, but because of the certain color, which was the big input of Joseph Albers, you change things. And he theories endless squares. And then his influenced a whole other generation of us who created op-art. So here we're looking at a wonderful panel, and I pulled this out from all the color theories. It's got in the background, you said orange. And then onto it is a complementary color of green. But as you look at it and change it, the green looks different in different places. In the furthest sections, it's all the same green. And so it's Albers color relationships. So nothing happened there, but how it made our next chapter, the color red has been used since Neolithic time. In our caves and lots of variations of red really were created up through the century and made out of bugs and animals and minerals, and they are mixed in the early days. It had a lot to do with it. Later, the chemists have a huge impact. But the reality is that many of the red are toxic. They are made with mercury oxide, and so they're not only beautiful to look at, but the people who wore these clothes and put the red stick on their face, the wonderful generals in Rome who covered their bodies, red pigment really got many times got. So ochre was the oldest color that we have, and you can see that all over in these are ochre mines, and it's a pigment iron oxide, and it comes in yellows and pinks, and it's mined and with a solvent. I love this picture. It shows some of the earliest known images using ochre paint, red ochre paints. Cinnabar, stay away from it. This is one of the most toxic reds in our history, and it comes, it's again around the world, from China to America to Europe. It is mined. Pompeii villas are painted in this wonderful color. But mining it, the people that were slaves, because they only last 2 years before the mercury took them away. So in this wonderful figure that the DMA Olmec figure from about the 6th century BC, is you see the red, that's red cinnabar, and many graves, whether they were in Egypt or in Latin America, had cinnabar inside of them. So a lot of the archaeologists went in and got sick because they breathed in this toxic material. Cochineal. Well, here's another really important fact. Bugs are used predominantly, both Kermes bugs and the cochineal, which comes from Latin America. And these are bugs on the pickle tree, and you just sort of shake off. And when the Spanish came here to the new Chinese red, it was created both in China and in is the synth manufacturing of cinnabar, or which we talked about earlier. But here it is a little less toxic, and it was made predominantly from pigments. And this wonderful painting by Blanchard, which is Zeus reaching down to his love at that time, Semele, and she is going to burst into flames in just a few seconds because that's the climax of the story. And you can see underneath Zeus is this wonderful manifestation of him as an eagle. And so it's this tender moment of outreach and soon death that you're looking at, soon death. But vermilion was used very much in most of Renaissance painting, and predominantly up to the 20th century. And then happily cadmium red was invented, and cadmium red is this brilliant red, and you'll see it started off being created as yellow, and then they figured out by mixing different combinations how to make it red, brilliant red, and it was Matisse's favorite color. And you see it there's a great painting called The Red Studio, which the entire studio is painted in this bright red, and then there's a few other objects in there that highlight it. And the important thing about cadmium is it has its own toxicity, and it was almost banned completely in Europe, but then they found out that there were so many other lead poisonings in the water that they couldn't singularly blame it on the cadmium. So painters survived and rallied. There was a big movement in about 2004 all about cadmium. So looking here, I want you to pick out your favorite red color. Who has a favorite red color? I mean, at the top on the right, you see red as a hue, and then you see its levels of saturation, then the values if you're going from dark to light. But okay, so who wants to raise their hands and give me a color? Yes. Ladybug red. How many like ladybug red? Whoa, that's a good hand up. And somebody else? Cherry. Cherry, okay. How many like cherry? That's an impressive number. All right, somebody else. Huh? Beet red. Beet red is down here. And how many beet fans do we have? Well, good. So, I mean, these are chips from the Pantone company, which produces inks that we use in printing. And for those of us who are into this thing, we just, when you get a whole box, I just got a whole box of Pantone colors, and you just kind of levitate. You know, I don't know how to describe this, because you can have so many colors of red or blue, and then you can begin to create new things. And so it's a very arty thing. Where's John tomorrow, my friend? And I think not everybody knows this experience, but once you get your Color Aid paintings and your Pantone chips, you know, you've entered heaven, nirvana. So how is red used in paintings? So many times it's used overall to bring a painting together, but it's used as a focal point. And you can see in each of these examples that red is specifically designed to draw your attention and hold it. I also think what's interesting is in the Duveneck and the Monet, the artists added the complementary color of green. So that's an interesting thing. And it's naturalistic or expressionistic. These are two examples, again, from the DMA. So there are little pinks, hints of pink in the cloud on the side on the Monet, and not very much red at all. But over here, you know, red is intense and vibrant, and even the trees look like they've been carved into the surface of the painting. So it's a very dynamic work. Illusion of Space. This one is by Jacob Lawrence, and to me, it's one of the most fascinating uses of red, because the red is all the same color from the foreground all the way to the background. It never changes in value or hue. It is exactly the same, and so you're pulled almost immediately from the drape on the sofa here and the shoulder of this woman in red to the bed where somebody's being cared for and out the window. And then your eye comes back and picks up the side portions of it. So it's a fascinating use of red to draw your attention and move you through space. Again, complementary color green used all around to make you focus on it even more than you thought you did. On the other side is Child Hassam's very atmospheric use of red. So we start in the, I don't know, I always start with a lady with bright red hair in the front, and then I go to the flags all the way back. So he's cleverly designed this so that you go from the foreground to the background. But, and flags are waving on both sides of Fifth Avenue. It's a really beautiful composition, but it is also a clever use of the color red because it doesn't, again, change in its hue. Gabriel Dawes, have any of you seen his work, especially over at Fort Worth? This is not the installation at Fort Worth. We couldn't get an image of that because they were under construction for their new installation. This is the one at the Renwick Gallery, but that installation required 60 miles of strings of different colors pulled together to create this work. And it's exciting because it's like walking around a natural rainbow. Very, very exciting. So mood and expression, we've got here a tanka, and you can tell that it's a complement of red. Movement, and this one is a new gift from Margaret McDermott. What's scary about this is it looks like the earth has been hatched away and carved away. Monochromatically, many paintings in the 20th century are just a single color, and whether it's Ellsworth Kelly or Rothko, it's all the same. We do not have a red Kusama paint installation, but we have a wonderful, the pumpkin. So I just wanted to show you, she also does this. This is all red petals. So red in nature. Of course, red identified first because it's really a physiological response that comes out of our bodies. Doctors also use it to diagnose illnesses. And the top slide being scarlet fever, and then you've got rosacea. There are many, many examples of this. And at the bottom are Osler's nodes. And these are really painful red lesions that occur on your body, not something you want. For those of you who study yoga, the notion of the first root or root chakra is very important and helps to create the behavior and function for your body and relates to the energy source throughout you. Red in the universe, an extraordinary experience. And I think most of us can't see this because it happens through those telescopes, but it was fun to research it and realize how prominent it is. Red in the sky, whether we see it around us, but it's often associated with different times of day, or the moons, the red moons, have very specific significance in harvesting in other areas. Red in the seas, oh, I love the crab. But some of it includes the red algae, which is very toxic, so it's often used as a warning system. Red in the land, everything from volcanoes to fields of red tulips to Ayers rocks to the Grand Canyon, and this is a ruby in the top. And this is an area that we found in Peru, unbelievable. You have to hike a mile a day to get there, even close to it. And so I'll never get there, but that's what they actually look like. Not happening to me. In nature, it's fascinating because it's used to help you define the world around you. So it's used to attract your mate. It's used as a warning on the black widow. It's used here the mandrill is the baboon at the bottom. And so when he gets angry and blows up his nose and his nostril, a whole nostril area, it's pretty clear that he's in this aggressive, dominating role. And mimicry, so that you can't even see what's going on. So when we did red animals, we had more pictures than we knew what to do with. And when it was hard for Lindsay and I to even begin to make this page, but it shows you just how dominant it is. In trees, it's used as fruits and vegetables. It's used around nature in different ways. It's a very dominant color. I love the poinsettias at the bottom. You don't have them here in Dallas, but yeah, I lived in the South for a really long time, and that was a sign of Christmas. This slide represents the top level of how amazing the number of flowers, fruits, and vegetables are that are red. And again, they're important for the fruits and vegetables to be red because it tells us we can eat them. It's done for a particular reason. And when they turn black, you don't want to eat them. Don't do that. So its symbolism is really an important thing. Red has a binary information. So it can be about sacrifice and passion. It can be about the devil and Christ. So the use of the color red in paintings and other things tells a lot of information, but it also can be conflicting. And there's a wonderful story about how Queen Mary, when she went for her execution, oh gosh, I can't tell you that story because Lindsay just told me that. That is another story. Passion and love, very important here. We see this virginal young girl being abducted by Zeus, taken out to sea, and she is covered with flowers and everything, but what surrounds her? Red. So we know what's going to happen to her. The tail is already completed in this picture. And then another image of Zeus is the eagle up in the top, and you see he has a red banner in his hand. So the scene is set. We are just watching the early preview. In Christianity, red is used extensively to symbolize Christ's passion, but also to represent prostitutes and other things. So you have to understand the context. And of course, here we see Christ coming down from the cross, completely wrapped, and this is not the tradition, but completely wrapped in red to show that his bleeding and sacrifice that he gave. And the Virgin Mary is holding the Christ child and looking at John the Baptist, but she is wearing a red dress because it is her recognition at the birth of Christ. He will give his life for mankind. The war and power, got to have red there because it was a way to keep you separated. So you didn't want to be, you wanted to make sure your uniform told you the right story. And whether you were a soldier or a general, it didn't really matter. This is one of my favorite things at the museum. I had a lot to do with its purchase, and Margaret McDermott hated it when we showed it to her because it's an actual ritual sacrifice. And if you look here, you see the priest reaching down with a shell and opening up. He's already opened up and taken out the heart of this poor victim. He's dead. And then you see the god up above sort of passing down, looking down and crying with blood. This is the vessel as it appears. We've taken a picture here and rolled it out so that you could see the entire image of it. Good luck and good fortune in different cultures. It has a lot of different meanings. As I mentioned earlier, whether in Japan, many times the brides are dressed in red. And in the Hindu traditions, when a wife gets married, they put a bindi on her. And so part of that is wishing good fortune and love through their marriage. Warning, don't have to say much about this, but it is an international color that is used in many different ways. And many of these have been adopted around the world, especially the stop sign for good reason, so that everybody knows what the symbols are. This was one of my most fascinating pieces of new information, which you can all take home. When you look at the nation's flags in the world, 73% of them have red in it. And so we just took a sampling here to show you the different combinations. But these are all the nations that have red in the flag. And it's an interesting thing because in certain parts of the world, for example, in Africa, the red represents blood and sacrifice of the people, whereas in other parts of the world, it represents good luck and other things. Okay, we have 2 minutes. How red is used commercially, we're going to fly through this. But here it's used in logos. These are 2 wonderful paintings at the DMA. And what I think here is interesting is that the logo is actually used for the subject matter of the painting. When I said it's used for logos, this is just a small sampling of the logos that it represents. And it's because red attracts power and it stands out. It has a lot of psychological meaning. It encourages you to eat food, didn't know that one, but and it encourages you to look at sales. So that's why it's used in so many different ways. Sports, I'm not a sports person, so this was a new chapter in my life. But in honor of some friends who are here, we have the Rangers. I was so glad that the first time I made the slide, they weren't there, but the second slide, they were there. And then what they've done is they've done studies on the Olympics, and they've dressed different teams in red and blue uniforms, and they have found statistically that it can be proven that the teams dressed in red, notice our gymnasts and our most recent soccer players, win. So good information for you all to have. And of course, Tiger Woods, for those of you who play golf, which are not me, loves wearing red on Sunday. Again, power walking onto the green, and it's a symbol of good luck. Beauty and fashion, can't get enough of this, and there were too many slides, but I think that it's important to realize that artworks had a big part in influencing this color, and the Mondrian painting is at the museum, but it led into an Yves Saint Laurent and a lot of other fashion industries. In entertainment, we've got the great variation, everything from Dorothy's red slippers to Mickey Mouse and Santa, and all of these superheroes. We had more superheroes than we knew what to do with. And sometimes they're all red, and then sometimes they're red and black, and sometimes they're blue and with red, but they all have the same meaning. These are all tend to be good guys. Yeah. That's one of the things. Holidays, of course, from Kwanzaa to Christmas and Valentine's, it's used extensively. Literature has been an important part of this whole experience of learning about red, and it's used in children's books and adult books, but it's an important signal. And we all remember Mao's Red Book, which is... in music and entertainment, I never had listened to Taylor Swift's album, and you heard part of it tonight while we were waiting. So it's very much used in the music industry as covers of these, what are they called? Albums, thanks. And the Rolling Stones, of course, had that wonderful red tongue blazing across it. But now in New York, we have this opportunity to see red, love, and hope in downtown New York. And the colors, of course, make it stand out and give it a huge presence. If they were painted gray or other colors, they'd disappear. We have to skip over this because we don't have time. And I can see Lindsay just held up. This is where if we had time, we'd run through the power of observation using the Marsden-Hartley to sort of see how we're attending and closing in, transforming and seeing the whole context of the hills, different colors, and then transforming it into something else. So let's do something. No, we're not done. No. So I want you to, those of you that are wearing red, and those of you who are not, arrange your tables or small groups of people, and get into, this is an African helmet, headdress, which I think is terrific. But I just want you to see, like, you have no red at your table, but you have 4 reds at this table, but get from dark to light, and and then the grays and blacks can have their own meaning. But just for a few minutes, get up and walk around and experience it. And then we have just a few more slides. Come here. Yeah, you just come here. There's red at this table. So go from...
I'm the only one following you.
All right, so is your red is more orange. You and Lindsay are actually pretty close. That's a nice tomato red. Ah. Right. Well, that's why I show the Pantone. Yeah, that's why I show the Pantone colors. It's infinite. I mean, in Pantone, if you go into the Pantone colors, it goes on for pages and pages. Well, they did in Pantone. Yeah. That was the one where somebody picked out cherry and somebody picked out rose, and I'll go back to, yeah. Oh, the 10 million colors? Yeah, no. Mm-mm. But you can see that's counting shades and counting saturation and hue, all aspects. The hue, the pure color, saturation colors, but your eye can detect subtle differences. Okay, last 2 slides, and then you're home free and you can ask me questions.